glasses on for you.
Hi. You're gonna wear glasses? Maybe I'll wear glasses.
And then
I
I'm like, I gotta like prop this up so we can have a
actually
conversation without me having to hold everything.
I usually go like when I don't feel like putting my contacts in on the weekends. I go like half blind for the lives a little bit. So
No.
we'll wear glasses too, and we'll both be wearing glasses.
It's lovely to see you again.
Hi, thank you so much for joining. Thank you, everybody who is currently watching and who will watch later. Welcome to the Goddess Talks. I'm Allison Barbary, and I am with Allana Taranto. Am I saying your last name right? I really didn't.
Yeah.
No, I did. I did. Okay. Of Modern Muse Fine Art Photography, as well. So Allana is a photographer based in Boston. She does fine art photography, and she also does boudoir photography. And so I asked her to be on because she did, for my 40th birthday in February, she did my boudoir photos. And actually, it feels weird to be wearing my glasses. Sorry. She did my boudoir photos. And so there were a lot of reasons I chose to go with Allana. But one of the main reasons is, besides getting a very someone I trusted referred me to you, but also was because when I went and looked at your page, I just saw all different bodies and all different genders and all different people, and I found that to be just such a beautiful representation of photography in general and humanity and what beauty is and body positivity. And so I was really excited that I got to do my photo shoot with you, and it was amazing. And what was the most amazing is I remember the person who referred me to you said, oh, she hypes you up. She makes you feel so, and it's so true. I just felt like a queen the whole time. So that was so that was my so yeah. So again, thank you for agreeing to come on. I know you're in demand and very busy, so I appreciate you being on. So Allana, can you just start by saying a little bit about, how did you end up in photography in general? What's your background?
Sure. So I love film and filmmaking, and then I wanted to take a film class, and my parents, particularly my dad, who went to art school, was super supportive of like kind of pushing me and like giving me access to things. But so he was like, okay, well, if you want to go into film school, you should take a film class. And so I took a class, and I'll say this for anybody who has been in Boston for a long time. I took a class at Boston Film Video Foundation, which was over Little Stevie's, if anybody remembers where that was. I don't know if it might be still there, but it was over by Berklee College of Music. And so it was like, I was like one of the only high school students in this class, and we had to do everything on little Super 8, right? Love film, hated doing the physical editing. So I was like, let me try photography. And then I just kind of like stuck in that. And for me, everything comes back to storytelling, right? So like everything comes back to storytelling. And it's all about like what the fun part about working with, Stephanie says Little Stevie's is still there, which like blows my mind. We used to go get pizza afterwards. In sequencing, like doing a series with somebody, we still can get kind of that narrative and get some of those beyond the still frame, right? So like we can imagine a little bit in there, and we can like sometimes from the point of view feel what it's like to be in this intimate space with somebody, but also in sequence we get a little bit more of a sense of who people are. This was me. Sorry, I thought I was very clever by holding that up.
It's okay.
Yes. So that's sort of the background of how I got into this. And then I studied photography and media studies as an undergrad. And then I got my master's in art education. And so I worked in museum education for a while, but still doing photography all along. And then like 15 years ago, I just like went all in.
So I love that one of my favorite things about preparing for the photo shoot with you was coming up with like a theme. And not that you asked me to, but in my head I was like, I want there to be like a real like sort of theme to this, like a feeling, like a mood. So, you know, a lot of the fun for me, I know, was planning like everything down to like the nail color. Like I was really into this like gothic mood and this very like sort of that feeling at the time. So, you know, I was like, what
How
nail
many
color?
pounds of crystal did you lug up?
I
Just
know I
like
brought so, and what's funny, and this could be not true, but for anyone who's planning on doing boudoir photos, so I did bring my 14-pound crystal skull that did make it into the pictures, but I feel like I bought and brought all this stuff and really didn't wear as much as I thought I would or change as many times as I thought I'd want to. And I don't know if that's true for everybody, but maybe, you know, when I do it again, I won't. I felt like I over prepared. Is that something you
well,
find that people?
I think so. Ultimately, like this is about showing up,
Yeah.
and that's the hard part. I mean, not like the hard part isn't like getting in the car and driving. Like, I mean, unless it's traffic, but like the hard part is not
Right.
like saying, okay, I'm going to do this and put it on my calendar. Really, the hard part is like having you really show up. And I
Yeah.
think you're right. Like, people, like, I think this is pretty typical is like, like people will get stuck in what do I wear? Like, what do I wear?
Mhm.
What do I wear? What do I wear? And what you wear should be like supporting character to you. But
Yeah.
that is a lot for people to take. That's like, you know, harder to show up.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like you didn't like, I think when you were there, you were like, oh, I don't need all of these other things
I
because
think I
it
was
felt
like sweaty
comfortable.
too. I was like, I'm not changing again. Like it's way too hot now. Um, but yeah, that's a really good point. And you did not long after I did my shoot, you did kind of like a series, like you were doing like a like a completely like nude essentially, but like in the boudoir way shoot where you
Mm-hmm.
were encouraging people to come and just do it without any lingerie or jewel, or like all the things.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I think is really cool because I think you're right. I think there was something more about like the pictures I liked the most were literally bras like just wear now. And the ones that I picked were literally regular, like they weren't these like super fancy like Fredericks of Hollywood lingerie. But what I liked was like the mood of the picture or the angle of the picture or, you
Yeah,
know,
but
just
you
that.
also feel like we all feel more comfortable in what we're like, what we're used to, or like what our bodies used to, right? Like this is like that you wear these bras every day because they're comfortable, right? And
Right.
you like the way you like the way they hold you in. You like them. So I think that's like also a thing where I always encourage people to try everything on and make sure that it doesn't feel like a costume, but like it feels like something you put on and you're like, yeah, this feels like me. So some people are into the lace and the lingerie and the like they step into their power. I mean, you did for sure, even though you say these are your everyday underwear. I feel like I've seen a lot of people in underwear. These are much higher level than every day. we take the big picture, but every day for you. But yeah, so some people feel like they like step into, oh, this feels great. Like some people love wearing heels, right?
Mm-hmm.
um some people freak out when they wear heels, or like they're just like, oh, this doesn't feel comfortable for me. And so you don't have to wear lingerie. So that's when that beginning process of like feeling like this is like, how do you want to show up, and what is who are you, like we had this conversation, like what Allison wants to show up,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And another big scary question. Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, Vlandy. So, Vlandy. Yeah. So Vlandy makes a good point. I actually have seen some really beautiful photo shoots where there's like women. So I don't ever look so personally, like as a human, I'm just extra. Like that's who I am. Like the things about
Yeah,
me are
that's
kind of extra. So like I'm not going to be like a white t-shirt kind of like that like flower, that kind of mood. But there are people where that's really their mood and that's who they are, and they're like that very carefree, almost that girl next door feeling. And so there's been some beautiful photos I've seen you do where people were literally wearing like off the shoulder, like a white t-shirt or like a tank or something that's really not necessarily lingerie, but still really gorgeous because it captures their
Yeah.
essence, I think, of who they
It's
are.
about the story in the body language, right?
So
And
I was gonna, so you went to school for essentially art and photography and through art through photography, and you worked in a museum. How did you end up doing, so now I don't know if it's that it came into my radar more recently or if it's something that really truly is more popular recently, but you've been doing boudoir for a while. And it seems like it's something that I feel like a lot of people are doing right now. I don't know if that's just because I'm noticing it more.
I think it's more popular. I think always, and I think the pandemic created a situation where we felt very, just collectively, and people can comment if they agree or not, collectively we felt very disembodied. Like there was this disconnect, like we're all like interacting frantically on Zooms, like digital heads. And then we have these analog bodies that we're like panicked about and everything. And I think moms in particular, all parents, but moms in particular, like took on a ton during the pandemic. And our sense of self and feeling the need to like reintegrate that has been really powerful. But I also think that the general a willingness to talk publicly about our sexuality, about our sensuality, about like releasing trauma, about gaining and acknowledging agency over your own desire, being willing to be vulnerable, having conversations around shame, all of that's bubbling up too. And so people are more willing to talk about it, is my thought.
Interesting. So I want to put a pin in that because I want to come back to that. But so boudoir it seems like it's then you agree, I guess it's becoming, but you've been doing it for how long? How long have you been doing boudoir?
I've been doing it at least 10 years, sort of intertwined. I was doing wedding photography and that sort of like crossed over because a lot of folks like to do it sort of, as I feel like it's kind of a little bit of an excuse to do it before the wedding, even though, because it's really for them. It's really for them. And like your partners are going to love whatever you give them. But just before, maybe a year before the pandemic, I like started like kind of really switching over into doing more of like the fine art portraits and less events. But I still do photograph families. I still do sort of like some branding, portrait work. Again, it's like still storytelling, but usually with clothes.
So so I have to say this because I mean, I don't have comparison. I haven't done boudoir photos with anyone else, but I will say, like, I think it's just you're meant to be doing them. I mean, the way, like I first of all felt so comfortable with you. Like there was not a moment where I was like, oh, I feel really weird about this or uncomfortable. Like there wasn't even a second of it, but just your knowledge of the way, like you'll post these like tips on your Instagram page and things like that about just like ideas for selfies and how to pose. Like you just have such a knowledge of how the human body looks, like what lines look good. Like you bring this art, like you said, this art to it. Like you studied art, so it's like, you know, like you move this like this way and it's gonna look this like this, as opposed to, I remember you did one where there was something like where the girl's leg was on her toe and then it was flat, and like just the difference in that, just that. So it's like, but you everything you do, it was like I felt like such a queen. Like I felt like such a goddess, and I was like, I'm sure everybody feels like she makes everybody feel this way, but I was like, wow, I could do this all the time. Like she really believes I look good in these photos. And
you
so
did look good in those photos.
But it was just, and it wasn't, I mean, I'm not particularly uncomfortable with my body. I think after you've had two children and you hit 40, and, I was a dancer for a lot of my life, and I spent a lot of my life in front of a mirror, and I've gone through various iterations of my body being very, very thin, and that almost like supermodel clavicle showing thin, to being very much the opposite of that. And I've gone through a lot of iterations. I think I've also gotten to a point where, like, I'm not someone who's weird about changing in front of other people. I'm kind of like, it is what it is. Like, I don't know if that comes with having children. I breastfed for 2 years. Like, it all becomes, but I also think and so kind of pulling that pin back out, I think there also is a lot more openness right now, in society, where there's not as, we're trying to take, I think there's some taking of the shame away from the idea of sexuality and sensuality, and taking it out of behind closed doors and saying, like, it's okay to be those things and feel that way and be that way, to embrace that publicly, whether it be your sexuality in terms of your preferred partner, or be just acknowledging that you're, as a human, a sexual being and a sensual being, and feeling okay with that. And I love that we're giving people permission to feel that way, because I think for such a long time, people, there's shame about,
Yeah.
the shame around, your body and I just don't understand, like, really, like, I mean, historically, I understand where it comes from, but, it's a sad thing, because people are feel badly about their bodies. People feel badly about, I know somebody told me one time they didn't breastfeed, which, I mean, it's all a choice. I mean, fed is best. I'm not judging, but because they felt like, breasts were sexual, and I was like, well, I wonder where that thought process came from. You know what I mean? Who told you that, like, but then also it's just this larger picture of, we're also celebrating. In recent years, I've seen a lot of even big companies finally celebrating not just one type of body, right?
Right.
And that's kind of amazing. So have you, like, what are you seeing in terms, like, one of the things, and I said this to you before we even started, one thing that one of my favorite things, and I said this before, is that I went on your page, you had women and men and everybody of different sizes, shapes, and you celebrated all of that. You didn't just have one page, and I've gone on boudoir pages, and they're not all the same. Not all boudoir studios are the same. The people sometimes that they put on their feed are all of the super fit, tiny little, exactly what you would
Right.
anticipate someone who is in a
Yeah.
lingerie shoot would look like. And that's
Where our
fine.
bodies are, we all live in different bodies, and they are always changing.
Yeah.
But they are like, they're where our spirit and soul is inhabiting, right? Like, they're the vessels that we're in. And I remember I got asked, I was like super honored. I got asked a couple of years ago to photograph Carmen Carrera. She was in town. And I was like, what? I was so excited. And I was like, I totally like second guessing myself and my friend, Amanda, and she's watching. I'm saying hi. She was like, Allana, it's just light and flesh. Doesn't matter if she's famous. And I was like, oh yeah, like that's what I'm looking at when I'm photographing boudoir, or like when I'm photographing anything, but like I'm looking at the shapes and the lines and the light and how your body looks in front of me right now, because most likely I haven't seen it. I'm not like we do internally, like a lot of people, I say this and they agree, like I'm not looking at you through a lens of what you used to look like, or what you
Hmm.
wish you looked like, or what your mother or grandmother told you should, what your body should be doing or look like, right? Like I am just seeing you as you are. And I'm looking for like the beauty and the rhythm of the lines and the shapes and like the breath in your body, and like looking for that emotional intimacy, right? Where people can really show up. Um, and if they want to show up in a sexual desire, pleasure way, that's fine. If they don't, that's also fine. But it's like, I'm not looking at people's bodies with judgment. I am not looking at them wishing they were any way other than what they are right now in front of me. But I know, because I have this feeling too, when the camera's on me, there's this like instinct to apologize for not being tall enough or small enough, or, you know, or having like a crooked smile or a big butt, or like, oh, or like my boobs don't look like they used to or something. Like, but I know there's this like instinct. Do you know what I mean? Like to like
I mean,
apologize.
I'm like, this is so silly, but I'm like choked up. Like that was literally like what you just said was like, it was like freaking poetry. I want to write down everything you just said, because it literally, like, the idea that, you know, as I was going through the photos, it's just like I think even myself, like, oh, I wish I did this when I was 18, right? Because imagine what they would have looked like if I had my 18-year-old body when I did them, or imagine what these would have looked like before, like, or I wonder if she could see. And it's funny, like, there's all these pictures that we were going through them, and I was like, nope, I'm not using that one. Nope, 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 nope. And I'm like, I don't like my stomach in that one. You're like, all I see is your face. I don't know. And like, the thought that you were looking at, like, just what you said is like, you're seeing people as they are, and it just seemed, it's so important, because I wonder too, like, that's such an interesting thought for life, right? Like, how many times in our lives are we going through thinking about what we wish we looked like, what we used to look like, how we think that we should look like,
Yeah.
the people we're
Too
interacting with,
much.
most of
Too
them,
much. We're thinking about that too much.
and most of the people do they even know? Like, I'm trying to think, like, if I show them a picture, sure, you know, but like, nobody else is looking at me like, oh yeah, she looked better in, like, you know, 20 years ago, or you know, maybe some people from high school might think that, I don't know, but you know,
Well, we
like,
look different. That, I mean, it's just like we look different. And
but you know, I mean, but it's like, I think that I spend personally a lot of times looking at myself through the lens of, I wish I looked like, or in a few months my plan is to look like, or in my ideal situation I would look like, or one time in my life I actually looked like. And like, this idea that, like, this isn't really what I look like. I look like this right now, but this is what, like, I really look like is the me of however. And very recently I had to let go of, like, you're never going to look like you did when you were 20. You are 40. You've had 2 children. Your body can't be that. And like, do you really want to be that hungry again? Because the fact was, I just didn't eat enough to look that way. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't starving myself, but like, I counted calories like crazy. Like, I don't have time for that. Like, I don't want to do that again, you know? And so I just love what you said, like, that you were seeing me, and that you see everybody that you're seeing. You're just seeing them right then in that moment, with no filter besides them, and that you're seeing, and that's just so beautiful. And it's so, and I hope that I want everyone who does their, like, I hope that everyone who shows up with you can know that, because it's just such a beautiful feeling to know. I kind of like wish that I had gone in with that knowledge, I think, because even though it was a beautiful, next time, yeah, I think even though it was a wonderful, amazing, empowering, fantastic, I loved it. I had so much fun. Like, it was just so much fun. I loved it so much that I would do it again 100 times. But not knowing, but still, I think even part of it was like, how do I suck my stomach in here? How do I hide myself here? Like, I'm not gonna like this as much, because like, I don't think my neck is gonna look good in this one. And I'm thinking, like, now you're saying these things, I'm like, I bet you she was not even looking at the one line on my neck I've been looking at.
no,
She
I
was
mean, I guarantee I don't notice stuff, like little stuff like this, until like I'm zoomed in later. If somebody, like, if I'm retouching a photo, but like, I'm like, oh, is that a birthmark, or like, is this a scratch or something? I don't notice that, because I'm really just looking at the big picture. Like, where are all the composition, where are the lines going, all of this stuff. So yeah, we're not, the photographers aren't critiquing you in any kind of like medical way. Like, here is the thing. Oh, I have a little visitor.
Oh, hello.
Hello. You want to
What,
say hi?
Leo?
That's Leo. And
Hi, Leo.
baby.
How are you?
I'm still talking on this. I
I'm
will come
talking about how
on.
your mommy is such a beautiful artist. What do you think? Is mommy a beautiful artist?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you gonna
Hey,
be?
Mama, why is that the last balloon?
Oh, I don't know, because a balloon from March from his birthday is still on the ceiling. It's unbelievable.
Wow, that's a long-lasting balloon, dude.
Mm-hmm. All right, I will come see you in a little bit.
It's from March 15th.
It's
Yes,
from March
perfect.
15th.
I'm not
How
sure,
old is
but
he?
when I'm done, I will come. I will come find you.
Two? Two
He's
or
one.
three? He's one? He's only one?
No, he's 5. He's 5.
Oh, I said
I
what?
know.
No,
I thought you asked how
I
many
didn't
I
remember
have. I
how
just
old
have
he was.
one.
I didn't remember if he was littler or
He's 5.
okay. I couldn't remember if he was on the little side or like oh, that's so cute. And you have just the one. Yeah. You said you have him. But so yeah, so what about you? Like, have you been on the other side of the camera? Do you
I
ever?
have.
Have you
I
done
have.
boudoir? You
I
have.
have. So I know all of this. I know all of this. Like, I know it from both sides.
Yeah.
And I look at like pictures. So I do have a self-portrait practice, right? So like that's for me, like every I do a birthday shoot every year on my birthday. So just sort of like as a record. But it's not necessarily as much. Oh, please give me some
Ninja
credit.
skills.
Oh, you have to put pants on, kiddo.
I know, but Mama. We
Please
take my shirt off.
Please leave the room and put your PJs on.
I need
Instagram
to
is
take
gonna.
my shirt off.
You can do it.
No, I
I'm dying.
got
Leo, no, I'm
He's
serious.
like, but we're talking
You can't be
boudoir,
here. You
Mom.
can't be in.
Okay, help me.
Here, turn around.
Why do you see my butt?
Nobody's gonna see your butt. Okay, go get your PJs on.
I can see my butt.
Brandy, you get it. You have children.
Yeah.
Brandy said we didn't see anything. You're. Did he say you're going to see my butt? That was really. Kids.
But yes, I do have a self-portrait practice so that I can. For me, it's sort of like how am I feeling about this body I'm in around my birthday, right?
Yeah.
So it's not so much like I said, it's not like a clinical like my boobs have dropped this much this year, but more of like, how am I feeling about it? And like, what emotions do I want to see in my body? And like, how do I want to move? And so I do that, but then I also kind of play around in the studio of like, oh, I got this new chair. I'm going to like play around with it and see what I can get. And like, how do I move? Right. And then I have been photographed by other people, one of whom I think is on the join this live. And I really like over the last couple of years, I have gotten very into being photographed. Like I love it because I will just like, you said you are a little bit extra. This is how I am when I'm posting. I just want to like sink into everything, exaggerate everything, make it a little bit weird. But I know that it's just all like, these are all just moments, and collectively they're going to tell part of my story.
Like I said, you show these amazing clips on Instagram and things about how to pose, but when you're doing it, I'm always like, well, obviously she looks good doing it because she looks great in front of the camera, right? It's like everything you do, like you just have this like effortless like way in front of the camera, and that's why I had to ask, like, do you ever as well? Hi, buddy. Hello. But yeah, it's just this, and I said, like, so for me, the experience was like, it was just so awesome, and it was, and Blandy, it's your Sasha Fierce. I've talked about this before. Oh, that's a wonderful photo, Leah.
Okay. Please go into your room. I will be
Okay,
in
but I have photos, man.
Cute. So Blandy said, so I've talked about this before, so maybe you can kind of, so like, Beyonce has Sasha Fierce, and it's this idea that this is who she is when she shows up on stage, and she's this personality. And I've talked about this with other people about like, I think all of us have this person or this inner person that is the us we wish we were all of the time. So I had a friend that I interviewed one time who had this really amazing salsa dancer lady, and she said, you know, when I'm a picture behind her, and she said, when I'm salsa dancing, that's, I feel like I want to feel all of the time. And I said, I wonder if all of us have those moments or that inner person. And it's really intrigued me lately of how do we connect this person that we are when we show up in the way we wish we always were, that everybody, that we really feel like our best selves, our most beautiful selves, our most awesome selves, our most powerful selves. How can we be that person all of the time? And it doesn't have to be a quote unquote stage presence, you know? And I think with boudoir, I think people get the opportunity to call in their own version of that. Yeah, Blandy, you watch that with my friend who's an author, but you know, you get to call in your own version of that when you do boudoir, because ultimately you're there, but most of the time people probably don't really know you, and you have the camera and you make people feel so comfortable that it's like this ability to tap into maybe the part of them that wants to feel the way they always, like the way that they would want to feel all of the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the invitation is always there for people to show. And there's like little parts of like the whole process is like lots of little offerings for you to show up. Some people just scratch the surface, and that's where they're most comfortable. And other people can like really sink their teeth in. But I think it depends kind of on where they are with their journey of, like you said, like acknowledging and releasing any shame, right? Like around embodying that, and just feeling comfortable. And I do find that, I don't know what word to use, as we mature, does that sound graceful? As we've done more of the work, we're able to sink in a little bit deeper and to recognize our own like sense of pleasure and our own desire and our own joy, right? Like how that feels without wondering how it looks.
Yeah, I think that's so true, because even though like at 40, I would not say that I'm in my ideal body in terms of like, and like for me, I've let go of, I want to get back to this body, because I've let go of that. I've come to understand that that's just not possible. Like that there are just bones that have shifted in my hips from having children. Like it's just not going to happen. But that there could be an version of my body now that maybe I feel more comfortable in. But that while I'm in the body that I'm in, I have to love the body I'm in. And that, you know, I said this to you before, and I should have looked up who said this quote. And I know it's like Sophia Loren or Coco Chanel or someone like that like the most beautiful thing a woman could wear is her confidence. And I think that that's so true, that, you know, you see people who walk into a room and like you don't even fully, you see them, but you don't, because they're just a presence. They are just this confident, beautiful, and it doesn't matter what size they are necessarily, or how much makeup they have on, or the way that their hair is styled. There's something about their presence that makes you just like, oh, wow. And I think that that's confidence. But I think you don't get that confidence until you realize, like, I'm going to always own who I am. And I'm going to be me, and I'm going to own it. And I'm going to, you know, like I own that I am extra, and I am okay with that. And I don't pretend that's not true. You know what I mean? Like I'm never going to pretend that's not true. I'm never going to tell you that my lashes are real and my eyebrows aren't microbladed. Like they are. You know, like it's all, I own that, and I am totally fine with that. And, you know, I think for other people, confidence means other things. And I think that it's once you have that confidence, then, you know, you could still work for maybe the body you want. I have a tank top that says like, love the body you're in while you work for the body you want. Or like, you know, I think there's that idea that you can be doing that. But I think you're right. I think it takes a while. I don't know that I was anywhere. I think I'm far more confident now than I was at 25, even though I looked significantly like better and thinner and more toned and more fit when I was 25. but I'm far more confident in myself. Like, I don't get anxious around people. I don't, like, because I'm just like, whatever, it's kind of a take me or leave me situation, you know, and that's fine. But, and so with that, I'm curious like, what would you say where do you see the most people coming in and doing boudoir photos with you?
The ones who are doing it, who are ready, who are like really ready to see themselves. At something has turned a corner for them in their relationship of gratitude to their bodies. So it is sometimes around or post a health scare or a major surgery. Sometimes it's around parenthood, like emerging from the soggy, foggy years and feeling like your body's your own again, and you're like ready to remember what it's like to enjoy it. And sometimes it's around like kids are out of the house, ready to kind of like refigure out who you are. Maybe it's around like a fitness goal, like reached, or like I had a lot of people in the spring around the marathon of like, I did this.
Oh,
like,
that's really
I'm
cool.
Feeling awesome, feeling strong. So it seems to be like there's an internal milestone that people hit.
I love that.
And so it's not always like, sometimes it's around a birthday, but the birthday is like it precipitates there's like inner workings, right? Like the birthday is sort of like the external marker, but like the inner alignment, you felt this, right? Around the time.
Yeah, like I had
you're
to
like,
be.
oh, I'm reassessing, I'm integrating, I'm like feeling it. And it's not like this is 40, but it's more like as I am entering my 40s,
right,
coming in with this energy, the extra energy, coming in with this extra energy and owning it.
I think a little bit for me, it was like, what does 40 mean to me? Because I think when you're 20, 40 sounds really old, and it's really not. And then in my head, sometimes I'm still very like 16 or 17 in some things, and still very like 20 or 25 in some ways. And then just like the concept of like, what does 40 mean, and like what does it mean to society, and why does it have to mean anything, and why does it have to define anything? Why does it mean that you have to have done a certain thing by this age, or that you should be doing, or you need to be doing?
You're questioning all of this.
Right, and I think that like that I'm really getting into that. It's not too old, it's not too late. Like there's never such a thing. And like, why do we define as a society that 40 means you should have or already need to have or should be doing, or you're too old to be doing, or like, why would you still be doing? Like, I got a tattoo in my like I have lots of tattoos, but I got one in my early 30s, and someone was like, why are you still getting tattoos? You're like 30, like you're in your 30s. Like, why are you still getting them? Like, are you going to keep getting them? I'm like, yes, I'm going to keep getting them. I love them. And they're like, well, what are you going to do? Thanks. Well, I didn't do them, but thanks. I had the good sense to go to the people who did them. I guess. But yeah, it's like, it's kind of that idea of like, why is it not okay? Right. And so like, why is boudoir or photos or something, like, why does that end at a certain age? You know, why does society decide that, you know, I'm even guilty of it. I was reading something, I was like on Instagram, and there was a woman who was talking about being she was like Sports Illustrated Model of the Year, and she was 38. And I was like, oh my God, she's 38. That's amazing. Good for her. And then I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, who cares? Like, you know, in my head, you have to be 21 to be Sports Illustrated Model of the Year. And I was just like floored that this woman was 38 years old and still considered like prime modeling material. And I was like, well, that's dumb, because that flies in the face of everything I already stand for. But it's society, you know, society tells us you're not as worthy, or you're not as wanted or desirable past a certain age, with a certain body type, you know, beyond a certain size, beyond a certain shape. You know, this is not the ideal. And what's really sort of you know, I think that there's such a sadness to that because it's also so shifting. Like society now maybe feels a certain way, but like I always say, I'm a hell of a lot more Marilyn than Twiggy. Like there was a time where that skinny, super skinny body type maybe wasn't ideal, but then you got these models in the 60s and 70s who came in with this skinny body type. And then the fitness phase of like the 80s, there was a certain body type. But like in the late 1800s or like the 1900s, what was considered a beautiful woman's body was entirely different than what's considered. And in different societies and in different cultures, it's so subjective, and we allow ourselves to be so like pinned by that, and society believes it, and other people do. Other people say, oh, well, if that's the standard of beauty, then I guess that person's not beautiful, right? I guess that person's they're not fitting societal standards. But the thing is, they're not fitting societal standards at this moment in history, at this time, as decided by, you know, the clothing companies and the fitness industry and whatever the case would be. And it's so sad because you can't necessarily, like, I'd be great if I was born in like 1800s Italy.
Ooh.
Oh, you're buffering. Oh, no, anymore.
Yes,
Are you back?
I got. Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah, you're right, Blandy. Beauty is a social construct, and I think that what we identify. And so I just love that you've taken this idea of beauty and you said like you flipped it, and because of the bodies, like I said, you have men, like that's amazing. And one of the things I feel like I've noticed with the men is like, and I could be wrong, but it seems like they get photographed, or a lot of them, around owning their sexuality as well. Like finally being like, with their chosen sexuality. Or not their chosen, but they're being out and open about their sexuality.
Yeah, and some guys want to do it for their wives. Like they're just like want to look hot, and you know, some of us like do legitimately have a glow up, right?
Yeah.
Like they like one of my favorite male clients this spring. He needed to see these pictures to see the body that he lived in today, because he was seeing the awkward, chubby teenager right before he sort of like came into his own and grew a beard, and like
men really do have some glow ups that we don't celebrate. Seriously,
yes,
I know,
they do.
And I think it's because we don't look to men for that as much when we think of beauty. But like, I know quite a lot of guys that like I went to high school with or around, like, and I'm like, wow, like they're much more handsome in their 40s maybe than they were in high school. And, you know, I think men do have glow ups.
The key might be the confidence.
It is,
right?
It could be, yeah.
Like not having those 90s hairdos, but also the confidence.
Quite true. So so I mean, like I said, I'm just so grateful for what you do, and there are people doing it, but I want, like, whoever watches this now or in the future, I mean, I need people to know that like you are just so, I think that you're different. I think there's so much about it. I think one of the big things is that you're an artist first. And I think the fact that you do look at things from an artist perspective, you know, you have these moments with me where you're like, I'm going to like take a picture of you through the reflection in the mirror. Like it was just these like really artistic moments where you were like in the art of it and the light and everything that you do. But also I'm not the only one that I know that's gone to you. So I can say like, I was told she's going to hype you up. She's going to make you feel so good. But it's so true. Like, I just felt so good. Like, I probably took like 20 selfies that day after I was done, because I just felt so good about myself. And like, Amanda does beautiful makeup, to be fair. So like I had to, and hair, like my hair and makeup looked awesome. And so your makeup artist, the woman that you work with, is fantastic. But there was also just this joy that I had after I was done, and like this, like, I want to do that again right now, 10 more times. Like, I just enjoyed it so much. And I think, you know, people have said, oh, I couldn't do that, I would be so like embarrassed. And I said, you know, it's for everybody, but it's for everybody. Like everybody, no matter what, can do it. And it's not about sex, or it can be, but it doesn't have to be about sexy photos or like my husband, you know, he thinks I did it for him and he's watching, but like it didn't. It did it for me, and I'm glad he's going to benefit from seeing the pictures, but I would have done it whether I had a husband or not. I mean, you know, like it was, I think it's, I don't even think it's a good idea. Like personally, I don't think you should be doing it for another person necessarily. I think you should do it for you first, and then another person benefits from it. Yeah. But
I've been trying to frame that gift giving in a way of like, ooh, you're giving it to your partner or your spouse. They're already
like, I can't wait to see them.
They are like, however you show up, they're going to be all about it. And they know you, and they know all of you, right? Like they know they know every facet of who you are, and they signed up for it. They're all in. Mm-hmm. So you can really be whoever, like whatever, however you want to show up in these images, and make it like that person, you have like a built-in audience that's going to love it. Well, yeah. So rather than like, ooh, like, are we going to have like, I just remember this early on in my boudoir days. This was at least like 14 years ago or something. But this woman asked me, she was like, because I knew her husband, she was like, can you ask him like what he wants to see? And I was like, it's not my job to imagine how your husband wants to look at you. Right.
But also your husband he doesn't care. Like he's probably like, whatever you do works.
But you know this, like Allison, like your partner showed you images of them like fully embodied and embracing pleasure and embracing desire and like making eye contact with you in that. How could you not love it?
Right. Right. And I think going in with like, what are they going to like? I mean, I'm not going to, like, I was in it for me. Like the whole time I was there, like I was in it and I was pretending like in my head, I was freaking Marilyn Monroe and like every old film star and like I wasn't even,
she channeled it.
But like, I wasn't even thinking about like, what would someone want to see? I think I was thinking about like literally embodying the moment of being there. And
which
I remember
awesome. That's what we want. We want you to be in your body, not imagining.
And I think when I was talking to you I was like, oh, but I'm not like, I want to lose a little weight first. And you're like, oh my God, you can do it now. And I love that and I feel like, I'm sure that's something you say, like, you don't have to wait to do boudoir photography, that you don't have to wait until you're ready or your body's ideal, because the truth is, and I was just watching something on Instagram before we talked where the girl said like, until you're like in love, like until you are comfortable with who you are, it doesn't matter what your body looks like you can get into your ideal body and you're still not going to be in your ideal body because you don't appreciate and love yourself enough. So no body that you're in is going to be the right body because you're just not going to be comfortable in it, because you're going to find flaws with that body until you're fully confident. And I think that's so true. And that's why I love that when you do your page, it's just like every different body type and you see, and I'm like, wow, like that person is not maybe traditionally the size that the fashion industry decides they should be, but man, they look good. God, they're hot. Like they look fire. Like they look fantastic. And I think, and then you see that confidence and you're like, yes, you get that. Like you be that confident all the time. And those are the people I think you see walking around where you're like, wow, like they're just like, why are they like so amazing? And you're not even like, you're seeing their confidence and you're seeing their love of themselves. And I will say that doing boudoir with you definitely made me love my body more than I did. You know, I still fight with it a lot, but when I saw the images, like, I remember just the one image that I told you, like, I cried, like, I'm like, that's no way. Like you've touched that one up. Like that is not possible. And I
straight out of camera.
You're like, I can't create bone structure or something like that. And I was just like, in tears. Like I thought that I was going to look at these pictures and a little bit be like, oh shit, like I wish I was a little skinnier than that. And instead, like I had this moment of like, wow, like that's me. Like, are you kidding me that that was me in that picture? And it's like, I'm crying again because it was just so overwhelming that I could be in a body like even now that's not my ideal body and see a picture of it and say, it's just the angle. I think that's what I said to you. It's just the angle. And you're like, no, like I can't create certain things that are already like your bone structure is your bone structure. Your face is your face. Like I can photograph it well, but I can't make it what it is. And that made me feel so confident because I thought, wow, like that's there, you know? And I think you give
You're
this
walking
gift,
around with that all the time.
but I think that you don't, I mean, I hope that you know, and I hope that you understand that the gift that you give to people when you're photographing them and the gift that you give to them in finding the best angle and the perfect lighting and bringing that out, like there's so much more to what you do than just taking photographs that someone's going to have. Like you are capturing people at both their most vulnerable, but like in the most beautiful artistic ways that when people see their photos, I know from talking to, you know, other people that have gone to you that it's just like that. I can't even believe that's me. And that, so you capture this beauty, and I think you bring it out during the session. You just say the right things and you make, it's just the most. And so I'm super excited to do it again. You have a new studio that I didn't, like literally like the next week you moved to a new studio. So I would love to, I'm super excited. It looks gorgeous inside. There's some beautiful architecture in there. Some really cool windows and stuff. So how could people find you? How can somebody, if they wanted to work with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
So they can DM me through Instagram, which I think they should be able to click through here, right? But it's modernmuse.boudoir on Instagram, and it's modernmuseboudoir.com.
Okay. Is there any dot? It's just modernmuseboudoir.com. There's no
you can do www, but
there's no. And so, and if people want to do that, they email you. Is that a good way
yeah,
to?
they can reach out. And my feeling is everything should start with a conversation.
Yeah.
So I love to get on the phone and just hear a little bit about like what prompted people to call, if they have a vision. It scared me. If they have a vision, or if they can you say it's, I know it's time for snuggles, Elsa.
I know. And I will say that it's a good thing to get on your newsletter. I know you send out, like, I think that there was a point, like I booked it when like a special came out. It was like, you know, book your session for this month, much now. And then it was like a, you know, so you do that from time to time.
If you'll get on the newsletter, I send out something pretty much every week, and then we have.
And you send out some beautiful tips too.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah. I enjoy your newsletter a lot, actually. It's not just about like signing up with you. It's like some really beautiful storytelling as well.
Thanks. That was my 2022 resolution, would be to like show up and give people value.
Well done. And your Instagram stories. People need to follow you on Instagram because I'm telling you, you give the best tips on like just taking selfies. Like, this is the best way to take a selfie and do this pose and put your head this way instead of this way. And what I mean, and it's amazing. Just the way you can move your body an inch.
It is fun.
It is. It is. And so I will continuously always tell people to go to you first. And are you still located in not Roslyn?
The studio, we moved to Dedham Square. So we're in the old Dedham Savings Bank. So it's this beautiful.
I want to get more screen time.
It's in it's like a beautiful architectural space. And yeah, he wants to show you what he looks like. Yeah.
You are super handsome, Liel. So handsome.
Mom, can you go?
Yes, I can. Give me a
all
minute.
right. Well, it's time for Mom to do some cuddles. And thank you for all the time taken. And thank you for everything. And thank you for the beauty that you bring to the world and the beauty you bring out in other people. It's so special, and you're such a gift.
My pleasure. You can bring all that extra energy over anytime.
I can't wait. All right. Bye. Have a good night. Bye, Leo.
Bye.
Bye.